We're in the final leg of the conversations tonight, and we'd like to say a very big thank you to all of you for keeping faith with us this evening as we look forward to having lasting solutions so that we can enjoy our football and we can truly live what we describe as the passion of the nation. At this point, we're zooming in on the moderated conversation. It's my pleasure to introduce to all of you a senior citizen of the land. Now, he is a medical doctor by profession. He served in the Ghana Armed Forces and has also served within the diplomatic space. At a certain point, he was Ghana's ambassador to Serbia. He also served at a certain time in his life as chairman of the Ghana FA. Years on, after also serving as CEO of Accra Hearts of Oak, this fine gentleman is still within the sports administration space and is serving as a board member, a devoted one at that, of Ghana's oldest existing football club, Accra Hearts of Oak. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, Dr. Nyaho Tamaklo. Ladies and gentlemen, he comes in with a wealth of knowledge within the space of football. Now, day in, day out, we're seeing people who have played football before get into very key spaces when it comes to the daily operation of the game in different places. And this fine gentleman is one of them. He played football with Mediama Sporting Club. So he knows what it means to be there on the pitch and not have many numbers in the stands. And he'll be addressing that as we go along. He also has a master's degree in from the University of Ghana Business School, and also graduated with a very good GPA from the Liberty University in the United States of America. Has a lot in terms of professional expertise to offer, and is now serving as a player representative at the Professional Footballers Association of Ghana, which is Ghana's wing of FIFA's welfare wing, FIFPro. Ladies and gentlemen, please help me welcome Philip Asiwe. He delivered a very passionate address earlier, and he still continues to have a lot of football passion within him. Well, he's seen different arms and different legs of the operational ladder in football, and is currently a sports management professional. He served as CEO of Accra Hearts of Oak. He's also served as a FIFA instructor marketing, and has served as chairman of the National Chapters Committee of Accra Hearts of Oak as well. Ladies and gentlemen, Neil Armstrong Motorbe. Well, this is a man of credentials. Credentials in the sense that after so many years of serving as CEO of Ashanti Gold Football Club, he won the Ghana Premier League. So whenever we gather to have conversations with people or chairpersons of clubs who have won the Ghana Premier League, he falls within that marquee list. Well, years after that, he is serving as a board member of Accra Great Olympics. Well, his first love is journalism, but football took him away from us. Well, we are forgiven the football people. Ladies and gentlemen, please help me acknowledge the presence of the chairman of the Ghana League Clubs Association, Mr. Kujo Fiano. Well, we saw his talent years ago with another network, and we thought, this gentleman is stayed enough out there. It's time we bring him in and baptize him in the multimedia sports ways. Run many years as a devoted journalist, broadcast, and has done wonderfully well over the legs that he served outside of the multimedia group, and as he serves now within the multimedia group. He is the host of Prime Take, which is a one-on-one conversation with the movers and shakers in the space. And you normally find him on that space, on the Joy Prime channel and on the Joy News channel. Ladies and gentlemen, my co-moderator for the evening, Muftau Nabila Abdullahi. Muftau, the last interview you had on Prime Take.
Talk about my football skill, but you didn't mention that.
Well, you decided to leave that for other things. So we can't talk about that now.
Could you discount me? You should have counted me when I was young.
So, Muftau,
It's not late.
the last legend you interviewed is called GHALCA, Ghana's oldest sports journalist alive and the pioneering president of the Sports Writers Association of Ghana. What he likes to say all the time and the accolade that is associated with him is over to you. Muftau, over to you.
Thank you, Nat. It's been quite an educative night, hearing from people or stakeholders within the game of football and the data that has been gathered by our colleagues in Shira FM, led by Bismarck Owusu-Bempah. When I was listening to him, so many things struck me. But people would always say, the opinion of the journalist does not go far, is the stakeholders. And tonight we are privileged to have the stakeholders here, the people who make the policies, and their policies determine how the game should be governed in this country. So let's set the ball rolling, since you've thrown it over to me. So I take it. And then I'll start with Kudjo Fiano briefly, because I remember him granting an interview, and he said something that was quite interesting. He spoke about how he went to the Volta region with Ashanti Gold, and when they were on their way back, he spoke about how some supporters actually decided that they were going to give them something for their boys because they had done so well. And it brings me to the point where everyone is asking ourselves, how come people are beginning to draw away from a product they like so much and even invest their time, energy, and resources into it? Fiano, what has changed in the last couple of years to the extent that last season, even our biggest clubs were struggling to get numbers?
Thank you very much. Let me say good evening to the audience here. But let me also start by thanking the multimedia group for this giant step they've taken to actually learn some tricks from our renowned doctor, Dr. Nyawanya Watamokolo, to diagnose exactly what is wrong with us and attempt to prescribe the dosage that could help us come back into mainstream. And I want to pledge, as the chairman of the Ghana League Clubs Association, that on behalf of the clubs, we are not going to allow this report to gather dust. We're going to commit ourselves to it. GHALCA will have to adopt it and organize a series of engagements with our clubs, our supporters, so that we can come back on track. Having said that, listening to the earlier speakers and also having the opportunity to have an insight to that report, I want to say that if really you all take that report seriously, we will find an antidote to what is worrying our game vis-a-vis spectatoring. You rightly mentioned that, I said it once, we played it in Pando. As we were driving out of the stadium, we saw this gentleman walking towards our bus, and they signaled us to stop. So we stopped, and they offered to get on board. So we opened the door, and they came in. What they said was, the mere fact that you came from the Ashanti region, we are Akans working in Pando, and they've realized that this Pando team had been whipping the big guys. They've whipped Accra Suffolk, they've whipped Kumasi Asante Kotoko. And having come from Obuasi to whip them, we are so happy. So take this token to refresh the boys as you make the journey back to Obuasi. Then I ask myself, what would have happened if House of Folk had gone there to beat them, or if Kotoko had gone there to beat them? It would have been a different thing altogether. And to pick a line from what we've heard, we cannot play the ostrich. We have all contributed to this very disturbing situation in which we find ourselves. You cannot have house without leaders. In every industry, you have the industry leaders. That is why if I want to buy a soft drink, I'll say, go and buy me Coca-Cola. If I want to send my driver to go and buy me fuel, I will end up saying, go to the petrol shell and buy me fuel. Why? Because these are brands that other brands will want to copy. And believe you me, if we make sure we get our traditional clubs doing what they are supposed to do, and we see them fighting neck to neck, the rest will follow in stream. We will not wait for the landlords of Accra to run away from Accra to Sugakope, go and refreshing themselves before coming back to Accra. All the factors have been taken care of, and I wouldn't want to keep overflog the horse. Sanitation. Why will I go to the stadium and struggle to get a place of convenience?
Yeah.
Why should I go to the stadium and after the game, I'll get to my car and the car will be boggling too? So a lot will have to be done. And as industry players, as clubs, we make most of our money from the gate process. No club can tell me here that the money they get from the gates could measure what they get from sponsorship. No. If you get the gates, if you get the spectators in the stadium, why not? You make a lot of money from there. So, a lot. Relationship between management and supporters. I think that have been taken care of. Making the environment conducive for all of us to work. And I'm happy Ayala didn't hide the space that had gone to the media, what they were also expected to be doing for us that they are not doing. I think the negativities are becoming one more too many.
Yeah.
And nobody want to follow a bad product. So if we are not saying that whitewash something that is not that good, but I think that together we can re-engineer our football and make it attractive. And also want to tell the clubs that we need to reach out. People will want to watch our game, but if we sit in our comfort zone and will not reach out to them, definitely they will not come. I went to a gentleman's office to seek for sponsorship, and he gave me a food for thought. What he said was that he was living somewhere in London, and they had a second division, a non-league club around the corner. One day he came back from work and he saw an invitation card in his letterbox. He picked it, and that second division club or non-league club was inviting him and the family to come to the stadium to watch a game. They brought it twice. He didn't respond. But that they did not relent. They came back the third time. So it was the wife who came to him. Gentlemen, we've been receiving this invite. Why don't we go and spend the weekend at the stadium? So the man obliged. When they got to the car park, the management members of the club were waiting for them. They were ushered into the lobby. They had something to drink and eat. They watched the game, and when they came back home, it became a routine. When the man wasn't ready to go to the stadium, the family, the wife, was ready to take the kids to the stadium. Then one day, it wasn't an invite, it was an appeal for fund. And he was obliged to give something because that club had become part and parcel of their weekend. How many of us are reaching out to people who want to be associated with that? We are not doing that. We are giving complimentary cars for each game, and we have difficulties in distributing these complimentary cars. When we should make concerted efforts to give out these cars, and people will come to the stadium. So we can discuss and talk a lot about it, but I'm saying that he who feels it knows it. So we, as the connoisseurs of the game, should come up with innovations. I always want to cite examples. I traveled with the Black Stars to Portugal, and as soon as we entered the stadium, the signal came. This is your code to access Wi-Fi at the stadium. So that even gave me the opportunity to communicate with my family then. when I came back to Obuasi, I tried it. And I could see the catchment area where the Wi-Fi could reach at the Lenkley Stadium. I could see the numbers coming. So we should also, nothing comes that free. Let us also spend a little more to entice our supporters to come and watch us. I'll leave it at this point to give the other panel members the opportunity to also say their bit.
That's a very deep one. That's a very deep one. Mr. I will hand it over to you.
Yeah.
But before I do that, I would like to ask Doctor, the history of Ghana football cannot be written. It will be quite incomplete to write the history of Ghana football without talking about the history of Accra House of Oak, because he's been a key person when it comes to rewriting the story of Accra House of Oak with that 64 Battalion story. Where
musical youth.
The musical youth.
Yeah.
And I think that basically restructured the club, repositioned the club, and made them so competitive to the extent that we all saw what they did in Africa when they won the CAF Champions League. It is a story that has to be told many times, because I'm not sure it was just the players who did it. The supporters also contributed. So I would like to find out from Doc that if you take a look at the findings that has been presented, which area struck you the most that you would say that if we go back to what you did with Accra House of Oak, if we are not able to do it again, probably we'll be struggling to get numbers at the stadium.
Good evening to everyone. You've taken me back to years. In 1985, when we had giants of football in Accra House of Oak, I'm talking about the leadership then. Let me mention names I can remember. H.P. Nyamitai. Most of these people were or have been chairman of the club, and also some were presidents of the FA years ago. So mention giants like H.P. Nyamitai, Kwesi Asante Sachi, Tommy Thompson, Alhaji Tijani, Dr. Kweno, Ambassador Osekre. I mean, these were great men in football. When you talk of football, these were the giants in football administration, mostly. And I remember I was on my way to where they started, really, the fire service.
Yeah.
It used to be a small place in Accra.
Yeah.
It was a Saturday morning. I felt I should have some tilapia, so I drove down there. When I got in there, the women have not yet arrived. So I said, I haven't been to Adabraka for years, so I was then staying at cantonments. So let me take a ride to Adabraka. Just when I got to where we had our office then, House of Folk, at Tudu. If those of you know House of Folk, that is where our headquarters used to be. It was a small little house. When I got there, and then there was a shout of my name, so I stopped. And these were the giants of the club lined up in front of a wall. And I saw our old rickety bus also parked there. So I got out of my car, approached them, and said I should sit down. It was an order. So I sat down. Then not quite long after that, came in Alhaji Haas. May he rest in peace. Alhaji Haas came in and said he went in to most of the boys' houses and they were not to be found. I'm talking about regular players.
Wow.
So, I mean, we were all surprised. A match coming on Sunday, we are going to Kumasi. We are playing Asante Kotogo. And players could not be found. I noticed immediately that the leadership was not happy at all. So, to make things worse, Elijah has said, some of them he saw, he was told bluntly that he should go, they will follow. Then all of a sudden, some of us started dropping in. And we were able to have a number of about 12. Then came in some 2 young men that were added to the team. And I remember vividly, we had a very stout young man who was the driver of the bus. He came to us that there was no money for fuel. I'm saying this so that you see that football is a difficult thing to handle. So immediately we have to contribute for fuel. And my few cities that I have for the tilapia, I have to put it in. Now, they got about 17, I remember, players. And then they left for Kumasi. Fortunately for us, it was a draw game. So when they came back, I had in trouble with them. When they came back, I was at home at Cantonments one morning when Tommy Thompson came to me. He was then staying at Labone, so he was quite close to me. I said, Tommy, we would like to meet you. They were then the directors, members of the board of directors, and they were the big men. So I attended the meeting at the residence of Mr. Kwesi Asante Sechi. And they hinted to me that they would like me to get closer to the club. There's no point staying behind and always saying you are a supporter. I get closer to the board. And I remember vividly, we had then, I think, a match to play with Incana Red Devils of Zambia. And the first leg was to take place in Zambia. And we were then training at Legon. And I remember also that late President Atta Mills was attending the training as well. He comes and we share, ideas with him. He is quite a knowledgeable person in football. So a team was put together, headed by this gentleman, Totobi Kwachi. He was then a very young chap. In fact, he led the delegation to Zambia. And we went down there, and it was a draw game. The second leg took place at Accra Sports Stadium. The stadium was fully packed, fully. When I say fully packed, it got to a point that they didn't allow anyone to come in. We wouldn't have anywhere to sit. The match started nicely. Our boys were doing well. Some of the boys I can remember, the names I can remember then were Santro Fiakwa and others. I don't know where they are now. But then the Twinkle Twinkle Little Stars haven't come at all. I'm just giving you the background to this particular situation. And we had an opportunity which we missed. But once again, the second chance came, which was a kick, that is a penalty kick. And it was foiled by Sontimuvi Aqua. And House of Oak is a club that is quite interesting to study. You have to study them, then you understand them. You can see that the supporters went wild. In those days, the presidential box was not what it is today. it was just a little thing. And you can see, all those are the various size of the wings. And then Nyemite took me into the box, as his boy. And the other senior members of the board were not in the presidential box. They were at the wings, the size of the box. And then Nyemite whispered into my ears. No, somebody came to Nyemite in the box, whispered into his ears. And then Nyemite told me we have to go to Asante Sesi's place after the match. So after the match, we quickly went to Asante Sesi's house at Akwaji. When we got in there, let me see if I can remember some of the names. This is history, So the giants I saw there, no, all the giants were present. I'm talking about Nyemite and his group. But some of the faces I saw there at that time were late Mr. Lawrence Ajedu. Those of you who know House of Folk, I'm sure. He died not quite some few years back. He has been a loyal House of Folk supporter. He served before. He has held various positions. He was our financial secretary for a long time. He himself is a banker by profession. And I remember there too was Totobi Kwachi, who is also a House of Folk, big fan. There was also present Mr. Atu Ahoy. And another chap who was then during the time of the PNDC, but he passed on very young. He was Minister of Atu Austin, that's the name. Thanks a lot.
The late Atu Austin.
Atu
Exactly.
Austin.
Sure.
These were all guys who were fun of the club. Then most of them were in government. Atu was then in charge at information also, either information or broadcasting, I forgot.
Information.
So, the discussion started. The big men were talking, were sitting quietly looking at them. And then we got together, and I remember Nyemite said, Lawrence Ajedu, that's his name. You are now the chairman of the club.
Just like that.
Just like
Just
that.
like that.
I see.
Then Ajedu stood up. He is quite a nice gentleman. He was quite a nice gentleman. Ajedu stood up and said, he would like to thank the members of the board of directors for giving him that honor, but he would disappoint them. And he said he would do anything for House of Folk, but no chairman. Now, when someone in House of Folk or who has no House of Folk will tell you that, and you have been there before, you understand him. He was a quiet, gentle type. And a gentleman cannot handle House of Folk, particularly as chairman of the club. So I realized that the elderly people were disappointed. Then all of a sudden, Tommy Thompson said, Nyaho, you are going to take over the club. In fact, I thought he was joking. In less than half an hour, it has been
Published.
Broadcasted.
It has been broadcasted. Atu Austin was then in charge of broadcasting, really. It has been broadcasted. Like a joke. I had a call from a few friends, and then I sat up. I said, this is a serious matter. So I must better get ready. But I told them one thing that was quite interesting. I told them in my profession, the most difficult thing is to come to right diagnosis. If you get the right diagnosis, therapy is not a difficult problem. So they should allow me to diagnose the whole club. If I come to the right decision, when I'm applying the therapy, I don't want any trouble from them. So I took a careful look at the club. I must say, I had great assistance from people like Ofe Dodu. Those of you who have been in football, you know him. One of the best right wingers of Hasselhoff, apart from Babayara.
Yeah.
Now, I call in Ofe, and then call him a gentleman by name Loco. He was also a Black Star player. These are all Hasselhoff Black Star players. And I told him, look, let's look at this thing carefully. Ofe assured me that we can get boys from Aurora, that's our junior side. He gave me a number. And then he went on further to say that another step we should take is to visit some of the rural areas in Accra, around Accra, because they play football. If you go to Manchago now, you see them always playing football. And we can spot talents there.
Interesting.
And then we went to Tema.
I see.
It was quite interesting. Now, we were able to put together a team. But before I got the team together, I went to call one of our Giants footballer, the first ever captain of the Black Stars, by name Yese Bryant, and the captain
Christian
of
Bryant.
for years. Tall, built man, you can never pass the ball, get the ball behind him, pass the ball over him. It's impossible. He told me a story that when we played Nigeria, I was then a little boy, I was in primary school, boarding school at Osun. He told me a joke. It wasn't a joke, it was a rare thing because he was trying to narrate something to me. That when we played Nigeria, I think it was in 1956, before independence also. Now, we scored Nigeria. The commentators were then Festus Adai. If you ask the old man, Festus Adai was there. The old man whose name you just mentioned.
Yeah, Joe Latte.
Joe Latte was there. Nigeria brought in a commentator by name Ishola Foloroncho.
He mentioned him.
My God, he was good. And he couldn't believe it. We scored Nigeria 7-0 at the Accra Sports Stadium, Park Stadium.
Doc, you've raised a very important point about numbers, which obviously relates to this. You mentioned the numbers when the club was struggling to move within the CAF space, or at the time, the African Cup, if you may put it that way. So I would want to come back to you in a few moments on that particular story and how you took advantage of the numbers and the buzz around the club, and you took that confident step of switching things over to bring even more numbers to the club. But just before you continue, Philip, you are part of the younger generation. You have benefited from the foundations that, Dr. Nyaho Tamaklo and his list of seasoned administrators laid so that we can have a solid foundation of Ghana football. Tell me about, very briefly, tell me about the challenge, the psychological challenge of getting to an arena, preparing well and wanting to play good football, but not having the kinds of numbers that you are looking for. Because back in the time, when Dr. Nyaho Tamaklo and his like were in charge, they drew the numbers there because there was talent. Tell me about the psychological battles that you have had to face going into arenas that sometimes do not have the numbers. Philip.
Right. So for me, I grew up playing football, and you look at U12, U14, U17, and this was in Medina when coach was pretty big. And you go to under 12 games, and the park is packed. The field is packed. There are people there, under 14, under 17, and then obviously there was a lot of rivalry there. I played for Medina Youth, so teams like FM, they were our rival. Stars Prince Tego's team. You are looking at Red Lobster, Goodies. These were, local clubs that were, so obviously the rivalry was there, and it was, different areas in Medina. So Aviation have their club, Social Welfare have their club, Roman, all these areas, and you always live for these moments that Medina Youth is playing against FM. You go to the park, it's packed, everybody is there. That is what every footballer lives for. That is what we dream about, going to the arena and it's packed. And so when, in 2015, I was in Mediama, we went to Kotoko to play against Kumasi Asante Kotoko in Kumasi, and we got to the stadium. And the stadium was virtually empty. It was just a few people who were seated around the VIP area, and you just cast your mind back to, the era of maybe the 2000s, because that was when I could really understand, or I could really appreciate, watching games on TV when you're watching Kotoko and Hearts and the stadium is packed and all these things. And you are looking for such an opportunity, and you get to Kumasi, and it's just, down flat. And it just kills you, because you're like, we've prepared for this, and, you're expecting people to come there, people to come watch games and all that, and you just get there, and it's just flat, and it just kills your morale. Obviously, you are there for business, so you need to take care of business. But there is always an added advantage that the crowd brings, that the support brings, that when people are in the stadium, footballers, ride on a certain adrenaline that the fans bring in. So there's always this statement that says that the fans are the 12, that's the 12 members of the game, So you always need that particular aspect of the game to also, bring the game to life. And sometimes you just don't get it. But when you are in the rural areas, so I won't say rural, but the other areas like maybe Takwa, Bechem, Doma, these areas, the traditional clubs, they've still been able to, get a hold of that and, still make the entire, club a community-based club. So there is always that attachment that the fans still bring on board. And, you are going to play games and you hear fans yelling at you and telling you guys that you better win this game. If not, you guys are going to walk home or something.
And Philip, that's where we would want to give big shouts to Inko Joseph. Please put your hands together for him. They represent Brekum Chelsea's supporters club. Remember, Brekum Chelsea built on what Hearts and Kotoko did and went to the CAF Champions League, were able to get into the money zone. But Brekum Chelsea, you have to get your act right and get back into that space. So we're waiting for you. Back to you.
Yeah. So, they've been able to, bring the fans closer to the clubs. And I think that is what is missing with, our two biggest clubs. Every now and then, maybe on radio, you hear about maybe management and fans, supporters groups having issues and all of that, which, I believe doesn't really help the cause of, the football club, because you need these fans to be loyal to the club. It is the loyalty that will get someone to carry their 2-year-old or 3-year-old and bring them to the stadium. And when they don't feel part of the club, then they just, take a step back and, just allow the club to do whatever they want to do because they feel that maybe they are not being appreciated or the club doesn't see their importance,
Yeah, let's come to you, Muftau. Muftau, you had this burning question. The other day we were discussing and you were talking about Neil's era as chapters committee chairman and how they used to organize themselves. Because now there's a big difficulty. I was having a chat with some of the friends here, and there is a big difficulty in getting members of the supporters unions together. Abraham Inkansa and his team have been doing a wonderful job. They've turned out their numbers tonight. Let's talk about that bit.
And that reminds me of the conversation we're having. And it would interest you to actually even know that the report captured it, supporters organization. What was Neil doing that you were able to get numbers to the stadium that we are not doing today?
Oh, well, is this thing working? I don't know.
It should be.
Can you hear me?
Please go ahead.
All right. So the question was a direct question. What were we doing? And I mean, I'm typically a self-effacing person. I don't like talking about myself too much.
So
but
what
you've
was
asked
your
me a
team doing?
direct question. So, I mean, I even trace a lot of the energies around supporters mobilization from what I observed my chairman before I became supporters chairman, Atukwe Green, of blessed memory. How it was that they were passionate about the work they were doing. Mobilizing supporters doesn't happen by chance. It's a job. It can be almost, it's just like how you have politicians traversing the length and breadth of the country to whip up enthusiasm about a particular candidate. That's how mobilization goes. If you don't invest time and resources into it, it doesn't happen. It does not just happen. Supporters don't come to the stadium by chance. Yes, usually when the team is performing, it's a bit easier. All right, but I have a certain philosophy of support, which I used to share a lot with the supporters in my time, that whether or not the club is performing, all right, the essence or the ethos of a supporter is support anyhow. And I'll give examples from what happens in England. You have, somebody may say it's a far-fetched example, but we are trying to learn best practices. You have a club that is destined for relegation, and yet the stadium is packed. And they come applauding that club that is going to relegation. It's like your last applause in the Premier League. Maybe it's motivation for you to strive hard to come back.
Survive, yeah.
But back to the question, it's about it's a job. It's work. Many a time today you find, and it's not meant to indict anyone, you ask, what did we do? It's just to share with the current generation that it's a job. It doesn't happen only by going on radio. Today we've got social media, you've got a lot of stuff happening on mobile phones or smartphones. So I would have thought it's even easier, it might be easier to mobilize using technology, but it doesn't seem to be happening. And I'm sure there are some other factors that may go into why we don't see that level of mobilization as we used to see it. The research pinpointed several factors, one of them being supporters mobilization. So obviously, it's for every supporters leader, whatever club it is, Inkojo is here, the Manya and Co were here earlier, Elvis was here, is to see what are the dynamics at play today. In our time, there was not too much of the social media, so it was walking. All right, and I recall when I stood for National Chapters Committee of House of Folk, it was a full political campaign, just to convince the people that I was the right choice to lead the supporters front. I was taken over from a chairman who had won the African Cup for the first time in the 89-year-old history of the club. All right, but we were able to convince the people, and now you become chairman, and you see that this thing is not muff. It's not just...
When you're on the
and
seat,
I was very young, you know. But when we became chairman, I said, hey, so this is what Big Joe, we used to call him Big Joe, was doing. But he was gracious to the extent that, Neil, you may have defeated me in the election, but I take you like a younger brother. And he taught me a lot of what it takes to mobilize the supporters of any club. I won't talk about the Hearts of Oaks and Kotokos. Every club has a way it can mobilize. Philip talked about Midiama. He talked about Doma. He talked about Bechim. They have seen that their catchment is the town, or it's a traditional area. So you tap into that traditional area. And look at the size of your stadium. If it's a 5,000-seater, what's the population of Doma? What's the population of the other towns within that traditional area? How do we engage with them? For me and my colleagues, it was a national job because House of Folk, Cosmopolitan, right from Upper East, Upper West, all the way down to the South, you've got supporters. So we had to go and convince them. And sometimes you even have to go to places where the belief system is not your belief system, but because you are leading, and for this one is heavily the traditional clubs, Hearts or Kotoko, you are leading them. Your faith is maybe Muslim or Christian. They say this much requires that we must go to point A, point B, point C. And point C is a place where your faith doesn't allow you to go. But because you are leading them, and I said it because A lot of times people say, what do the supporters do? But before you can get supporters to do what they ought to do, it's about investing time and resource and building good relationships amongst all the stakeholders of the clubs. That's one of the areas I think that we are having challenges within our modern context. There's a lot of rancor, a lot of negative noise, okay, in the media space, management versus supporters, supporters versus supporters, even intra-supporter conflict. Yeah. It doesn't enable the levels of mobilization you need to fill the stadia. When the unity of purpose is there, in any club, you find that even if the club is not performing to the level you expect, there is a certain united spirit about getting to that stadium to propel the players, like Philip said, as the 12th man in the stadium to get the club to perform. And once you are there, the centers are being filled. So it's just to summarize, it's a job. It's not fancy talk. It's about knuckling down to understand that you must work, and you must also show the levels of respect for every stakeholder, every organ within the club. And for every club, you've got a hierarchy. When Hearts of Folk, before the current era, we had a council of patrons. We still have a council of patrons that's not as maybe intensely active as it used to be, but now we have a board of directors. All right? There were times where I disagreed with the then board chairman, Uncle Ato Ahoy. But there are ways where you approach your leadership. It's about packaging. I'm a marketing person. You have a message. You have a point of dissonance with your leadership. There is a way you approach. The way you approach, and even in our culture, there's a way you go before a chief. Yeah. There's a way you go before elders. When you go that way, you find that you get responses. When you go in ways that show a certain level of disrespect for your leadership, they may sit there and say, oh, yes, oh, thank you for coming, blah, blah, blah. When you leave there, everything you said is gone with you through the door. True. So it's about respecting all the stakeholders, seeing that this is a job, and applying ourselves to the job. And I'm sure through that, the various supporters, leaderships of our clubs will be able to tap into the energy, because the energies are there. That we went for. Last week, there was an annual chapter delegates assembly of House of Folk supporters, a club that plays 12. I said it, 12. You know, but it's very painful to say, but that's what happened, and yet you should have seen the energy in the delegates assembly. And that's why, for me, what multimedia have started it's a good thing. That slide that talks about the supporters mobilization is a slide that every single supporters leader of every club should look at carefully, go into the anatomy of the research, and see what buttons must be pressed to get the supporters mobilization better done. Once it's better done, you find the supporters coming there. There are places where you go around Ghana today, Division 1 club, Division 1 matches. You should see the attendance, because they are tapping into what? Communities. For the hearts and protocols of our world, the community is Ghana. For others, just use what you have to get what you want. In those little spaces, I think it will be good. And I think I want to commend you for, especially the Insurati, for what they've done. I see that, I looked at the number just as a quick comment. I think the sample size was 591 respondents, if I got the figure right. One may say, okay, 591 respondents versus a population of 30 million Ghanaians, or even if you say 12 million are adults, what's the percentage, okay? It's like a 0.005%. But for me, it's a microcosm of what Ghana is. It's a microcosm of what typical supporters are. We can go more into the demographics. And my prayer is that maybe we could put together, not a think tank per se, but collaborative thinking, and see how we can expand the sample size and drill maybe a little wider and get some further insights into what it would take to fill our GPL centers again.
Great stuff from Neil Armstrong Motagbe. And at this point, we'll just throw it to the floor. I'd like to invite Mr. Inko Joseph. He is a representative of a club who are seen as a community-based club, where they're tapping into the community to ensure that they have the numbers all the time. Let's take his experiences within the next minute and a half, his contributions on this particular subject. And then we'll pick a few more contributions on the floor before we come back to wrap up, as we're racing very, very hard towards 9 p.m. Here we go.
Thanks for the opportunity. I would like to talk about quality.
Yeah.
And talking about quality, I would like to talk about why most club owners need to employ quality people who knows the nitty-gritties of the game. Not about friends and chronics. Dr. Yahu mentioned some names. if you compare the management at that time to this current management of House of Folk, does it tally? Of late, we've heard people blame Kurt about running Friends and Chronics management. It's starting from how we run our clubs. If we are thinking of bringing in my brother, my friend, my sister, or whatever, instead of going for people who have actually studied the game, division of labor, we should bring in people. If you go and put in somebody who doesn't have any expert in communication, how will the person be able to brand your club? Also, we need to talk about the welfare of the clubs or the players. I was one of those people who always cried that, Congress should pass a law for the players not to travel outside the country for some number of years. But when I went closer, when I got closer, I realized that from afar the picture is different.
Thanks. Thank you. Thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, put your hands together. We'll pick a contribution from Mr. Vincent Soa Odote. After that, we'll pick a contribution from Madame Vicente Deku. She represents a unique bunch of people whom we want to see in our stands. The women. We'll listen to her in a minute, but another minute with Mr. Soa Odote.
Thank you very much for this opportunity. I think my issue about Ghana football has been known for 20 years. And the issue is that we are producing a competitive entertainment product. That goes to the core of the problems of Ghana football. When you rank of the reasons why people don't go, what was the top one? Quality. What is quality? Quality is fit for purpose. Our football, what's your guy from Shire from? When you spoke to me, our football is not fit for purpose. A lot of the issues we've raised are symptoms of an underlying problem. When people go to the stadium, you are competing with their social time. People want to be entertained. Why are we not being entertained? We need to do, as Dr. Nyawo said, to diagnose, but in terms of management and strategy, we talk about situational analysis. We are all, as my senior colleague Zungo Togbe said, we are all pretend like the ostriches. Our football is not fit for purpose. The issues you see about officiating, the issues you see about security, the issues you see in the fans are symptoms of the underlying product. If we are able to realize that this is the core of the problem, all the other things we are speaking to will come out, about quality of management, about the people, why. Malco Afajinu made comment. The contextual environment in which we are managing football now is completely different from when Dr. Nyawo was there. It's completely different from my colleague Neil. Why he was able to, but it's completely different. The technological environment, the social environment, the economic environment, and the impact of the globalization, they are completely different. We have not been able to find answers to the impact of these things, and that is why we are where we are. I think I support what Neil Armstrong says, that as a follow-up, you need a broader stakeholder of people who will bring other aspects of it. And then, as Inkolina said, football is no more being managed by football administrators. Everybody, my son can read the rules and regulations. Football demands different sort of skill sets to be able for us to compete and do well. What does the Saudi model they are building brings another dimension, what they are doing in Saudi Arabia, to the world of football.
Very well.
And I'm sure these are things that we need people who understands what drives value, what will make people come to the stadium and to have that emotional attachment to the game. These are the things we need to look at. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. We'll take a comment quickly from Mama Vicentia. What do the women look out for so we can attract you? I mean, you've been organizing the women to come to the stadium. What do you look out for? In just a minute.
Thank you. The women, we look out for, I think some of the speakers talk about it, about players.
Okay.
Because when you go to the stadium, you have to pick a player that I'm going to watch this player play.
Very well.
You see? So that one, you know, the women, when they are coming, you know how they dress up. Somebody can write a player, if because lie on on t-shirts, and then when Black Lie is playing and he saw this thing, the name, you know, Black Lie, the women there chanting and singing, you could see that Black Lie's
energy
will just be up.
Wow.
So when you come to the stadium and you don't see anything like this, somebody get a ball and even empty pole, he cannot score.
It becomes a problem. Thank you very much, Mama Vicentia. Just briefly, before we come back to the floor.
I think we should speak to the Mr.
Lai Kingsley himself.
The referee's manager, because interestingly, officiating was one of the things that was pointed out by the report. And it is in your office that we get all these things. So you should be able to tell us something. What are some of the solutions that your office would like to provide us briefly?
Yes, Mr. Kote, in the next minute. Yes, sir.
Well, thank you very much. For me, I want us to look back and look at what we did that made refereeing great. Okay, during our time, refereeing, there was competition amongst us. You know, you want to go in for a game and you want to go there and do the game and come up well. You understand? But can we say that of today? No. You understand? And so, competition is one thing we want to bring back into refereeing. I mean, you must fight to get a FIFA badge. You must fight for it. It shouldn't be on a silver platter. No. You understand? And so these are things that we want to look at. Now, these days, you see a lot of technology, you know, that has come into refereeing. We want to try as much as possible to bring it also into our system here. You understand? I believe that if we are able to do some of these things, refereeing will get back to its place. Of course, once we have been able to identify that there's a problem, fixing it becomes very, very easy.
Just like Doctor mentioned, yeah.
Quick comments from Mr. Lai Kingston. The ladies come and watch you, bro. Lai, Samuel. Samuel has a very nice hairstyle. You know, it's a point of attraction. In the next minute.
Yeah. Thank you very much for this opportunity. I will be focusing on more technical issues.
Okay.
If I say technical, like my mommy said about supporters picking one particular player to come and watch. It all depends on how, or let me put it in an identity that the team is putting up. And it all comes from the technical side.
Very well.
So, and also my boss here mentioned about employing people that know how to implement something like that. For me, I believe in when you're playing, let's say, let me use Accra Great Olympics or any other team. When you are playing good football and you come in and you have a certain style that you are playing and supporters are enjoying the style. Back in the days, and we're looking at individual players, but now football have revolved a lot. It's all about the style of play that the fans are enjoying. I believe every weekend they'll be itching to come and then watch the team play. So for me, I think the key thing is how the team is playing, and they are playing when they're getting results. When they are getting results, you definitely you have the fans trooping in to come and watch the team play.
Very well. Final comments from the floor coming from ex-Ghana international Samuel Inkum in the next minute. And of course, we'd have to commend Lai Kingston. He's just wrapping up his UEFA License A badge. Put your hands together for him. All right. In the next minute, Samuel.
Thank you so much, and good evening for everyone. Good evening, everyone. I think I will focus on about the clubs that we have. You know, I think we have to also focus on the player transfer, also the contract itself. We want to make the league attractive. Every player wants good contract to showcase himself on the pitch very well. And this is some of the things that we have to also do. Also, we have to pay too much attention on, also, we don't want too many negatives in our league. That is
the media.
The media, that is something that is also killing the league itself. We want the league to be attractive. But if we have the media that they can support the league itself, I think we are not going to sit down today finding the solution.
Thank you.
I think that the media have to also play a major role in
Thank
this.
you. Thank you very much. All right. Time is not our best friend right now, so we'd have to come back here and take, I don't know how we're going to manage it, but we'll start from here and we'll do 1 minute strictly for everybody. 1 minute. Final comments so that we can wrap up. As we look ahead to a part 2.
You want to restrict my father?
Yeah. So Doc, final words of advice for the Ghana FA. We'll definitely do a part 2, but final words for that in the next minute, sir.
I think we have to do a lot if we really want spectators to start going to the stadium. What I believe should be done, to me, what has put a lot of people off from watching matches are the behavior of referees. The FA should look for quality, not quantity.
Very well.
There's no need to pack a seasonal league with a lot of referees. If they can do that, that definitely will bring some sort of sanity into the system.
To the game. Wow.
That's a good one.
Thank you.
And the
Thank you so
referee's
much.
manager is here.
Yeah, thank you very much. Word to the referee's manager. Finally, Philip.
Yeah, so I just saw, was it today on, was it Twitter, that we've lost Hafiz Konkoni to the Tanzanian league.
Yes, Tanzania.
You know, and that's just another bright spot leaving our league.
Very well.
And, you know, quality is important. And if we keep losing, you know, our brightest spots to other leagues, you know, then who are we going in there to watch? So, I mean, I think someone
it's just like Mama Vicentia said, we need the names, we need the brands.
And someone also mentioned, you know, quality contracts, and that's just what it is. You know, I represent, you know, players on the union. You see their contracts, and a lot of them are taking peanuts, and it's just not the best. For them to stay, we need to pay them more so that we can have them stay and then improve the quality of the league.
Very well.
Let me come to Fiano on this one, pretty quick. People say this era, and you heard it from Vincent Sorodote, about technology. There are so many competing things for when it comes to the Ghana Premier League. How must we position ourselves to be able to attract those people to come to the stadium?
I think an exercise like this is also part of the recovery effort. Having come here, seen the report, we need to work at it. We should not throw our hands in despair and say this is a very hopeless situation. I think that together, all of us coming together like the proverbial Captain Planet, we can find a solution to it. We can bring back the fans to the stadium when we make the environment conducive for them. Why not? They'll come. And let us not forget, let me hammer this one once more, the media being the mirror of the society. So it is what you throw out there that will make the trick, either break it or make it. So together, let's make the GPL attractive. Let's bring the fans back into the stands. We have the capacity to do
Neil,
that.
final word?
Neil.
Well, I mean, the survey has reflected the importance of science in the development of our game. We look a lot about the analytics of players, I mean, heat maps, and it's easy to see how it applies to the players on the field of play. What multimedia through Insurance Sports and you guys here have done shows that the same science ought to be applied. VSO, I mean, Vincent spoke to the science of it. It's a scientific thing. It's not happenstance. And if we look at it scientifically and look at all the threads that we need to pull together to build a product, an entertainment product borrowing from Vincent, I'm sure that the stadium will be filled.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Muftar, thank you so much. Thank you so much, Mr. Kujo Fiano. Thank you, Mr. Neil Armstrong Motagbe. Thank you, Philip. Thank you very much, Doc. We're very grateful to you. Ladies and gentlemen, we're very grateful to you for tonight. There sure will be a part 2 of this because of how these interactions have gone. But from here, at the Labadi Beach Hotel. We'll say thank you to you, the viewers, who have followed us and on Joy News, and those who have listened on Love 99.5 FM and on Joy 99.7 FM. It's been wonderful sharing your company. We sure are going to do this, but let's together come, put our efforts together, put our energies together, and make sure we fill our GPL centers. Have a wonderful evening. Thank you very much.